really epidemic in our country is that there's always an excuse. And that's 99.9% of the people. Oh, well, this, I'm still doing this. And it's like, and there's an excuse. I cannot want it for them. They have to want it more for themselves. You want to blame everybody else for what you don't have versus taking ownership of what you need to do to get better and be better.
Alicia, you were ranked the best by Richmond Times Top 5, the referred realtor by Richmond Magazine, and America's Best by Real Trends.
Be present where your feet are. I'm present here with you now, and I can appreciate this moment and enjoy it. When I'm with my children, I'm with them fully. And I want to know what's going on. I want to know what they're having difficulties with. Everything that is hard for them is hard for me. Understanding and walking through their shoes and not saying, oh, I remember when I was your age, you'll get over it. It's no big deal. It's a big deal because it's a big deal to them in that moment. And I think that's with anybody, like a new agent walking through their shoes and understanding what they're feeling in that moment. It is so important. Understanding that helps you connect, and it's about connection. 100% quality over quantity all day long. But in the quantity of the little moments every day, build up to quality. I've had health issues. I had a child randomly in the business. I went through breast cancer and going through that and just like so much. And I think that one of the hardest things is that you have to just keep going. You think your things are great and things are going great and you get the rug pulled out from under you.
Alicia, you were ranked the best by Richmond Times Top 5, the referred realtor by Richmond Magazine, and America's Best by Real Trends. Appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Always fun to talk to new people. So excited to be a guest.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of start. Tell me about Alicia's blog and why did it start and what did you learn from starting that?
So that was something that started early 2000s, I think. And I kind of discontinued. It was something that started a long, long time ago. And I was in medical sales at the time. I wasn't in real estate. And I just kind of left it. And I don't know, it's just been there. So I honestly don't really do much with it, but it was kind of my foray into expressing myself and knowing that I wanted to be in a level of coaching and helping other people. So one other title you don't know, I don't know if you've researched at all, but I am a certified Tom Ferry real estate coach. So I'm one of his coaches and I've been in his ecosystem for almost 10 years myself. So we kind of, through that whole process, I've been able to interact and grow with other top leaders, which has, kind of ricocheted, I guess, like folded over into other areas of my life. So is the best way I would say. But Alicia's blog kind of came from some serendipitous thing like, oh, I should just do that and take the name and didn't really do much with it. So that's just there. I was like, oh my God, how did you know about that?
Because I was looking at it, I was like, yeah. And I looked at that and I found your YouTube channel and you mentioned like your personal brand is like your lifestyle calling card.
Yeah.
And that it's important to understand how it represents you. I was just curious, did any of that like translate over into what you do now and how did it translate over?
I think brand is really interesting. I think everybody has a brand, whether they realize it or not. I think we all have, like, if you think about we as human beings, everyone has a human experience. And I think there's a lot of people, go through certain phases in your life. For those of you that are Taylor Swift fans, she talks about her eras. It's a really great way to express like all the different periods of your life. Yep. And, when you're younger, like in school, you may have a persona that you embody because you're trying to figure things out. And then you become a young adult and then go into adulthood and then trying to figure things out as a parent. And I think, in looking back at my evolution, and I'm in midlife now, it's really interesting to see the ebbs and the flows and the changes I've made and decisions I've made. And because of one decision, you go to the next, right? And anytime, so I think that's kind of what's interesting. But I think when you look at groups of people, you have your party friends, you have your dependable friends, you have that's what I mean by that. And I think that's kind of brand, if you think about it. And so when you think about that, you have to think about how do you want to be perceived and who do you want to attract to be in your life. So if you want to be known as like the healthy fitness, like positive person, then you kind of have to embody all those things to attract those things to you. And I think that's something that is what people struggle with because they kind of want something, but they don't realize they kind of have to go through the motions of doing it to get it versus just saying, I want that. So I think that would be the ultimate thing about brand. And I've kind of been able to tap into embracing, I guess, where I am in my life and also recognizing that, as you get older too, I really don't care what anybody thinks. So you just kind of embrace about what do I want with my life? And it's not my opinion. It's not none of my business if someone's opinion of me is not good because that's their opinion. Like everyone's entitled. Like, you're going to like repel some people, which is probably a good thing because I think you can't, there's no such thing as 100% for everybody,
Yep.
There's just no such thing. Like when you think about like when you say ice cream, you would think like everybody should love ice cream. But there's people that are like, I can't eat it. I'm lactose. Like there's always like, oh, I don't like, and you're like, what's wrong with you? It's ice cream. Like, it's even, ice cream can't even win, So that's kind of my philosophy on that. So I think brand really speaks to what do you want to attract into your life? And that's the brand you need to embody. Long answer.
No, it was a good answer because when I look at, for example, like your brand, because you're a broker and your name, The Collaborative.
Yes.
And I think of that and I think of what does that come to mind?
Yes.
And there's probably a thought process in that naming, and then that naming probably plays into how you recruit agents, who you recruit, Correct. Who you don't recruit.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Everything I do is with intention. I'm not someone that takes a step without being thoughtful. I don't think that I don't think it's in a way that it's manipulative or scheming because I think that can be misinterpreted as like you're not doing anything unless it's calculated. But I'm also just very intentional about my day, my time and boundaries and, how I parent and the words that come out of my mouth because human beings, I think, don't realize sometimes you can react very poorly and cause a whole nother storm of something that doesn't even need to happen. And hurt people. And so that's something I'm being very, very cautious of as a leader now to be very mindful of how my energy is being pushed out to the world because that affects everyone else around me. So I think at The Collaborative, we really look for people that are attracted more than anything to wanting to grow, wanting to work together, wanting to be in a situation and not have ego come to play. Like, yes, it's good to be confident, but not have like this bravado of like, I'm better than everybody else. And that's why I want to be here. That's not really what we're trying to build. Like my brand is about growing other leaders in our brokerage. So you grow other leaders by leading yourself. So I'm trying to teach people how to lead themselves to grow in their business and then hopefully grow other things from them.
Nice. So if I was like a new agent coming on to your team, could you walk me through like your thought process, like when you did it, now when you work with agents under your brokerage and under Tom Ferry, if I said, oh, I want to build my brand. Yeah. Where would you start?
If you were a brand new agent, first of all, I would need to see how committed you are. I think we look for things like commitment, coachability, you have competence. Like there's a whole thing about some people can want it and get it, but they just don't have the capacity because it's just whether they're physically competent or mentally competent, some people just don't get it. There's an ability, I think, in this business, there's a gut and intuition I think some people just don't have. And it's not to be derogatory in any way. I think it's just not for everybody, And I think there takes an ability to walk through fear very easily. And so I would say for someone that's brand new, I would probably say, do you have the ability to make $0 for 6 months? Are you okay with that? Like, that's a really hard pill for some people to swallow. And that's about like leaping off that bridge to say, like, I believe in myself and knowing that if I can do all this work, I'm going to be able to make this much more money because I know I'm investing in my business now. Right. It's like anything else. Yep. You start a business, you're like negative for years before you go up. But the capacity is so much greater that if you can see beyond the day to day and know that like in long term, you can go from like this, and this versus just like that. right? Let me get my little meager salary. Those are the people I look for. So people that have vision, people that understand the vision of what they want for them, family and themselves and what they want to grow into, and people that are willing to execute. So I do follow the DISC test very closely because I'm trained on it and I believe in it. You can lie, and I can tell when you're lying because I can tell when someone's not their DISC too. So I think that's something I really use, and not just the DISC, but also looking at the values of the DISC. So in order to do this business and do it well, you have to be someone that can actually execute, and not someone that's getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. You know, those people are like, I'm going to clean my office. And then I'm going to set my calendar up, and then I'm going to study this, and then just the whole day go by, they don't do anything. Like nothing is done. And I give that as an example because there's a lot of people like that, or they're waiting for people to call them, or they're a secret agent, meaning like they don't want to tell anybody that they do the business. Like one of my newer agents, she escaped North Korea. She's a North Korea escapee. She's amazing. And at her kid's private school, the president of the PTA is a real estate agent that I happen to know. And I had no idea that her kids went to that school. And she said before she even joined real estate, she had no idea this woman who is the president of the PTA was a real estate agent. Like that is the epitome of a secret agent. How are you going to be a PTA president and nobody knows you're in real estate? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So like that's a perfect example I give. So if you're brand new and you come to the brokerage, we pretty much set you up. We have a whole onboarding track. We have systems and checklists. We have staff to support you. I'm not like, here, come here. And, you know, it's a lot of like, you have to kind of figure things out too. Like that's part of me knowing if you're going to be able to make it or not. We do have daily accountability. We have a huddle every morning. We have selling skills once a week. We have professional coaching with a mastery coach that coaches our brokerage that I pay for. That's once a month for an hour. There's homework. There's like trainings. We have a once a month in-person office meeting with education. And we have one-to-ones once a month that are between us, me, myself, and the director of operations with an agent to find out like where they are, how are they doing, where they are with their goals. And then we have a weekly scoreboard that people have to turn in the number of conversations, number of appointments, how many contracts did you write, how many closings. Like we track everything. And when you track and measure, you can grow things or not grow things. And so we implemented in our brokerage the EOS model. Are you familiar with Gino Wickman? So
traction and all that. Yep.
So we implemented EOS towards the end of last year, and we've seen incredible like breakthroughs with that, with understanding, just like staying in your lane with our divisions and leadership, and how to support agents and accountability, and what our standards are really. So we do have standards, and we do have, you know, our vision of what we're trying to create, and that's really helped us in being clear on who we want to attract to our brokerage. Does that answer the question? Kind of?
Yeah.
Long. I have a lot of long answers. Sorry.
It's good. And I do want to get into like your training and accountability, but you mentioned something actually at the beginning, which was the DISC test. And you learned from a lot of different sources. A couple, actually, I just picked up the book because I've been doing what's called CVI since I was like 17 or 18. It's a different version. Okay. And then I learned DISC and other things. Yes. But I picked up the book Surrounded by Idiots.
Oh yeah, I had that. It's a great book. And then also there's a couple other ones. Let me find it. There's another one that's like Surrounded by Idiots. It's excellent. It gotta come to my mind. It's kind of boring looking, but it is
Social Styles Handbook.
Social Styles Handbook.
Yeah. So
boring, but it's really good. It's very dry. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. But it's exactly on target. So that's basically like I hire and fire to the DISC.
Really?
Yes.
To like a T, like you'll say, okay, this role, they're like a high D, but I want someone who's like a high S, very attentive to details. Like you'll literally hire and fire to that.
So it's not like I won't even, so when I look at the DISC, it's not a black and white because obviously there's 4 things that go with it. It's not just the DISC, it's the values that go with the DISC. Okay. So that's what people don't realize. So you got to get the full DISC and look at the values index and look to see. So a perfect example would be someone that has very low economic, like they have like the different levels and there's economic. If someone's really low economic and really high altruist, they're not going to sell shit because that's the nonprofit. That's the do-gooder. That's the volunteer person. They don't care about closing the deal. Does that make sense? And someone
Yeah.
that's really high aesthetic is not going to be able, that's the person that's like, my environment has to be perfect for me to do anything. So I don't do well with those people because like, I don't really care that you don't feel well. You need to get your shit up and go. Like, I'm very much like that. Like, you know, those are the people, like, those are your interior designers. Those are your creatives. Those are the ones that are like, I just have to, like, my whole environment has to feel beautiful and perfect and everything has to be. And I'm like, what? Just go. Pick up your shit and go. Like, doesn't matter. Does it have to be pretty? No, just go. So everything has to be pretty. They don't like anything to be like, you know what I mean? And so then there's someone like, if you have someone that's super high theoretical, that's like the last one and they're high C, those people, oh my God, I can't. Those people want to read every single book. Those are the double PhD, double doctorates, double da 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 da. They want to know everything about everything before they can move forward. Like they will be analyzing a spreadsheet and coming to you and you're just like, we're never going to move this project forward ever. It's never happening. So, and I'm telling you, it is every single person when I read their disc, I can say, don't hire them. I can already tell what the interview is going to be like, because it's interesting how when you answer those questions and you can overcome your disc and your disc changes. So that's why I tell people you need to take it every few months, but there are certain core things about who you are. So there's the adaptive and then there's the natural, right? Because at home, some people are a certain way and then at work, some people are another way. So it's like depending on what you're like. And someone with a super high S, they're awesome, but they are very people that hold everything inside. So they won't tell you what they're feeling. They're going to absorb everything. They're super supportive. They're super like, hey, I'll show up. I'll do everything for you. They make incredible assistance, but they just are very slow. They're very stable. They can't make decisions. Like you're like, I do not have time for you to like just or like process everything. We got to go now. So like that person's not going to do well in a situation. If you're trying to get someone to run a department that has crazy high S and not D, they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They're the worst person you can put in charge.
Because you're a high D, right?
I'm off the charts DI. So I'm D, like 99.9% D, 99.9% I, 50% S, and my S used to be very low and it got higher when I had children. See how you can adapt. So you become a mother and you have to be like a mom. Even though I'm like, you're fine, let's go. Let's do it. And I'm Korean. So like it's a cultural thing too. It's like very direct. I'm very direct. I'm very driven. I'm very like bottom results. I'm very bullet points. Like if there's too many pieces of details, I couldn't even log into the podcast correctly because there's a lots of things. And I was like, which one is it? And I just like zoom. Just went to the one from there. So I'm definitely my disc, right? And so I already know myself. I know myself. So I know who I need to have in my army. So particularly like most assistants should be high SC. I got to have an assistant with some D because I need an assistant that can be strong enough to execute without being scared to move forward. Whereas some people don't want an assistant that has that high D. So that's why the disc is so powerful. And the best agents really have a lot of high IS team agents and mid D. But because if they're too high D, they want to be the leader. They're going to want to be the leader and they're not going to listen. And it's hard because if you are high D and you don't know what you're doing, that's like bad. It's like I've seen it blow up and I'm like, good luck. But it's interesting though, because I do have conversations and it's very interesting you bring this up because I have a brand new agent coming on and I looked at her disc and I said, I understand why you were not successful before because she has very low D. And I told her, I said, you have to understand, you have to go against your disc and your nature to do well in this business. Do you understand that? And she got it, but you have to understand who you are before you can make changes and work against it, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean you can't be successful or you can't be in the role. I just like to have an honest conversation of like, if this is who you are, this is what the role entails. Can you adapt yourself to make that happen? That's the difference.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. And I think luckily because I've like was trained on it, like going through management training at like 18 and having to learn personality types, like I understand that innately. But sometimes, like for example, agents, they just get so good at sales. They sell 30, 50 homes and they're like, okay, let me become a team leader. And they don't realize there's a transition between sales and leadership. So what have you learned throughout this process being able to transition to a leader?
Wow, that's like the perfect question, because I did not anticipate that very question. Like, I didn't anticipate the difficulties it would entail. Like, so I did that very thing. I was a top producer very early on. I've always been like top in all the sales things I've done. I was in oncology. I did, I won all the trips, and I transferred it into real estate and did really well right away. And I just am a really hard worker, and I will outwork anybody, and people know that about me. I will do everything that I have to do to succeed. That's just who I am. And it's built in my bones. And so being someone that's very rigid, I guess, I'm not as rigid now when I'm looking back. It was very hard for me to step out of that and bring people in and not understand where they were coming from. It was like, why can't you just do it like this? Like, I don't understand you. Like, and it was very much like, rigid is the best way I can say. I was like rigid. And I didn't understand, like, there's a top producer hat and then there's a leadership hat, and they're night and day. And so I think that is a disease or epidemic in our real estate environment, that anybody that gets so busy with their own production all of a sudden decides, oh, I'm going to be a team lead and bring a buyer's agent on and just like do it. But there's no guidance, there's no leadership, there's no coaching, there's no training, there's no onboarding, there's nothing. It's like, here's my shit, go figure it out. Right. And I recognized a lot of the mistakes early on. And as I grew through it all, trust me, I failed so much, and I continue to fail every day. And the hardest thing for me is to understand how to lead myself first. It is and I'm sure you get that, right? Like, leading yourself first and understanding that you chokehold yourself and what you need to do to grow. Like, you cannot lead anybody else until you can lead yourself. And so that has been the journey for me. And in the pursuit of leading myself and understanding myself as a human, in this world, navigating and trying to create something greater than myself, is when I've learned how to lead others. It's really weird. It kind of happens serendipitously, but a lot of it was because of the missteps I made too. And having to take a look and be like, what the fuck? What did I do? I'm sorry. I'm not.
No, you're good. It's fun.
But just like that literal feeling of, why am I doing this? Like, what have I done? You think your things are great and things are going great, and you get the rug pulled out from under you. It's happened to me so many times. I mean, I've had health issues. I had a child randomly in the business, not with a random person, like I've been with in 27 years, but we had a late in life child that was not expected. She was a surprise. And I was just growing my team when I got the news that I was pregnant. And I was like, what? And I didn't know what that was going to be like, navigating, a new baby and all that, and pregnancy and being out. And, I went through breast cancer and going through that, and just like so much, like I've gone through all of the things, trust me. And I think that one of the hardest things is that understanding that you have to just keep going no matter what, and just learn from it and go, what do I need to do now to make this a better thing, and then keep going. That's pretty much all I've been doing the whole way. Like flying the plane that's with the broken engine or whatever, hoping that building it. They say you have to build the ship as you're,
flying it
or something, whatever that is. So,
building as you fly.
Yeah. And it's really weird, because you're just like, I didn't understand that until like I was in it. And then I'm like, it's horrible. I don't like it.
So being a high performer, like, I know that you get down this lane of like, let me perform and put food on the table, work on the deals that I'm doing, and you work on skills that go with that, like follow-up conversations, like your listing presentation, like you do things to help you do better in sales.
Correct.
But then as a leader, there's new skills that we have to learn, like I'm trying to get way better at communication, empathy, understanding people's personality, systems, building out training, the operational side, what skills did you have to learn that have been probably the most impactful or the most helpful becoming a leader?
For me, I think, I remember I touched on intention early
Yeah.
on. I think the intention of wanting to be better every day has been something foremost humbling for me and not making it about me. So when I branched off to create the collaborative, I removed my name from the team. And, everything is about making other people better. And that's hard, giving the business away to other people, like giving buyers to
Yeah.
other people so that they can grow and they can have a win, and coaching them through it all. And I think for me, what I've seen the biggest impact for me is being in a mastermind with these other women. And I've been doing it now for almost, we're going on 3 years here. We meet every Saturday morning, and for a couple hours, we don't not miss. It started as a book club. We started reading The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill, that big 600-page book. And it was just the two of us, two women, and the third one came in, and it was just three of us for a while. And then we added a fourth and a fifth, and now we're at 6 women. And it's not just like a cattle call of who wants to join our group. It's an intentional, like, hey, I think this person would be a good fit for us. And we all are different, completely different across the country. And we're all in real estate though. And some of us own multiple businesses and do different things. Most of us are everybody's older than 40. Let's just put it that way. So it's not like, young. It's like definitely at that point in your life where you're like, what are we doing here? Right? What are we doing with our lives? So that I think has been very paramount because these women challenge me, different thought processes. We read together. I read like 3 or 4 books at the same time. I'm one of those people that read.
Yeah, same.
And that, as when you read, you absorb knowledge differently and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. And then you kind of, I call it the idiosyncrasies that come throughout the day from what you read. You're like, oh, that's interesting. It gives you an opportunity to apply what you learned if you're open. So like every day, like when I have a meditation or prayer, like I say, like, I want to be open to the possibility today to learn and grow and be challenged. And I think if you come with that as a true open heart to want to grow and learn, you will. Just like if you go like, I know everything, I don't need that, you're not, so I think it's just that openness that I want, and I'm yearning to be better every day. And I'm okay with not knowing all the things too. I do challenge other people to be better as well. So I do hold a very, very high standard, and I'm kind of a hard ass. And in my coaching world, my coaching clients across the country, I have specific coaching clients. They know if they come into my schedule, like, it's not about like, making you feel good. It's about doing the work. Like I don't have time, you know what I mean? Like I have very limited schedule, and I don't want people on my schedule that are there just to complain. I'm like, what are we going to do to move your business forward? And that's about it. And, so that's, that's ultimately where I'm at. I'm a Tony Robbins, client as well. So I, pay money,
Nice.
a lot of money for coaching, in the real estate. So I'm a mastery, coaching client for Tom Ferry. So I am a client of his. So I started in core, went to elite, went to team, and I'm in team mastery with him. So I'm personally coached, and also our brokerage is coached. So we have like masterminds and trainings on operations, on selling skills, on all the pieces that have to do with real estate. And so that is a huge piece of our growth and learning. We're getting ready to go to a leadership conference in October, and we had Success Summit last week. We held virtually in our office for all of our agents. So we do that. There's constant learning and growing and studying and applying the skills as well, not just doing it, not just, doing the raw and not doing the work. Yeah. And then my husband and I are headed to the partner trip in Maui, with Tony Robbins, to the relationship trip. So I'm really excited about that. So, but that's kind of like, it's just personal growth more than anything, just pouring into trying to work harder to become a better person.
So, because I hear it all the time, because people from the outside, and I don't want to say that in a derogatory way by any means, I get asked, how do you find like a mentor? How do you find people that you want to be around? Mm-hmm. And for me, it feels like natural. Like I could say how, but like I'm always curious. It's like people are kind of perplexed by that. Mm-hmm. And I can see why and I can see how. And I was curious, how do you find the right people to be around and the right people? Because it's very easy to spend thousands and tens of thousands of dollars on bad mentors, people who are not going to give you the time. They're too far ahead. They're not like close enough where they could say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Or there's a lot of different things that could happen. So what do you look for when you're looking for like a mentor or a group that you're trying to be connected with?
I think a lot of what I get what you're saying, because I think I was very frustrated for many years with that very question. And living in where I live, I have friends. I have a lot of like really good friends. Like my relationships are everything to me. So I have incredible friendships and people that I deeply love and connected to, but I don't necessarily would not call them like someone that I would look at like a business master. Like we just have different conversations, right? So then I have people that challenge me and push me and have bigger thoughts of growth. And typically that's all the people I've met in the Tom Ferry world, to be honest with you. So I think finding people that are searching for that, number one, and getting in the room with those people was the biggest step that I made years and years and years ago. And in that there was organic friendships built because they're like, oh, you're like me. It's a very lonely business. And even if it's just texting and meeting up at the conferences, like seeing them, and then organic relationships develop. You know, we pass referrals or we pass like, here's my stuff. You need help with that. And in that, genuine friendships have been built. And I think that's ultimately how I have found people that I wanted to be around. I've definitely outgrown groups as well, because I have outgrown groups. And it's really hard when you outgrow a group. And it's okay. You just have to move on. It's not that I'm better than them. I'm just at a different place and I'm just doing different things. And that's it. And just like, you know, that's why I leveled up in my coaching, because I realized I wasn't getting what I needed where I was. And you have to be okay to pay for those things. And I think that's ultimately like when you are resisting paying for something, then I think that's a question you need to have within yourself. Like there's a value to being in the room. And that's all there is to it. If you want to be in the room, if you want to be with the players, you got to be in the room with the players. Like you can't just like hang outside and think you got to pay for the ticket. You know what I mean? Like that's just ultimately what it is. Like, you know, and I will pay for the big ticket all day long now because I get it. And it took a long time to understand that. So for me, it's about when I do these things, it's about who am I going to come across that I'm going to learn from and grow from and have an potential business opportunity or opportunity in any way, shape, or form that will open my eyes and my opportunity. You know, things just happen. You allow it. You know what I'm saying, right? And that's why I'm very open to things. And I say like, some people are like, oh, you're going to get scammed or whatever. I'm like, no, because I vibrate at a different level. I'm a big like Joe Dispenza and Michael Singer and all those people.
I like Michael Singer Untethered book.
Oh yes, and did you read Living Untethered?
Say that again.
So he wrote the second. Did you read Living Untethered as well?
I don't think so.
So he wrote Untethered Soul, and then he wrote Living Untethered. You should get Living Untethered.
Okay,
it's a follow up to Untethered Soul. It's excellent.
I'll check it out.
It's so good. And so Joe, if you like, then I highly recommend. Neville Goddard, and then Wayne Dyer wrote Wishes Fulfilled off of Neville Goddard's The Power of Awareness. And it's just fantastic about manifestation. And then the whole piece with Joe Dispenza, he's a quantum physicist. So if you're very like science-based and wanting all that. So I do all of his meditations morning and night, but he's freaking not genius. Like I can't even take it. But like, if you I kind of try to remember, like, I need to vibrate at a higher level, like an energy level. So like, that is not going to be in my path. So I don't even think about that. I don't even think about like, if something comes that's in a lower vibration level, it's there to teach me something. And I just take the lesson and move forward. So that's kind of like, not to get all like esoteric, but that's just basically kind of how I roll, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think, as long as you kind of look at the group that you're getting into or the connection that you're getting towards, like I've spent probably not the same amount as you, but like I've spent a lot on coaching to the point where I can say like every single time it's worth the investment as long as you're like intentional with like who you're working with. And it's like the right person. So I was curious because you mentioned, I want to kind of tie back a little bit to like the agent side a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you had, as you mentioned, like an award-winning career, 15 years in biopharmaceutical sales. Like you're ranked number 1, number 2, like all these pushes and contests consistently. What do you think that taught you, or what skills did you learn? Because just for context, like my first job was Cutco. I don't know if you ever heard of it, the knife company.
Technology. Yep. John Rowland talks. Yeah, I know Cutco.
Yeah. I did that for 5 years, if you would guess. But what I learned from that was invaluable, because I learned like communication skills, like how to present, and things that I almost take for granted now, because I look at like other people that I meet and I'm just like, man, that amount of like experience that I gained at a young age, what just pays dividends. So I was curious, with your sales career earlier, how did that help you when you got into real estate?
You know, I think for me, I came into real estate as a business owner. And I think that's the biggest problem that I see in our industry, is that people look at it as and instead of the whole thing. Meaning like they have their career and they're like, and I'm going to get my license and do it on the side. Like they kind of look at it as a side gig. So they treat it like a side gig. They don't treat it as a business. Or the latter I see is that it's a job. Like they think they treat it like this is my job. Like, so I'm going to come from one job and then this is my other job. Like this is my job. And so I don't think they ever take full ownership and run it like a business and look at P&Ls and look at, your time is money, all those kinds of things, like assets, and looking at boundaries and looking at budgets and expenses and, all those things, and understanding that you do need to invest to grow as well. And so I actually had a friend, this is a very good analogy too. And I think your mind's going to be like, whoa. Cause I was like, wow, Christian, his name is Christian Stubbs out of California. And we were laughing because he's like, any other business, think about this, any other business, like let's just call it a pizza shop. You're going to open a pizza shop. You got to have a location. You get business license. You got to get the materials like inventory. You got to get staff. You got to get all the machinery, right? You got to do all the stuff, the advertising, everything, the food, like all the governmental stuff. There's a lot of pieces to open this business, right?
Yep.
And it's going to take you maybe 5 years to make all the money back, to even be zero, even from what you put into it, right? Because you're paying loans back and all that stuff. Then you look at real estate, right? You pay a couple $1,000s maybe to get a license, and you sell a couple houses, and next thing you know, you're like making 6 figures a year. You have no storefront, you have no inventory, you have no head count, and so then you become used to being a reactive business person. Make sense?
Yep.
So then you're like, oh, I'm making all this money. Maybe I should buy some advertising. Maybe I should add an assistant, because it's reactive, not setting your business up as front as a business. So I think in real estate, so by nature, it's a very like backwards business. And so you have to learn it backwards instead of like setting it up and learning it as a business. So that is the biggest issue, I think, with real estate that goes in.
And there's really no training. Like you get your license and you join whatever brokerage that you feel like at the time is the biggest benefit. Sometimes it's a bad decision. Sometimes it's a good decision. And depending on that, they either have good training or bad training.
Correct.
And I wanted to kind of talk about that, because you mentioned like the accountability, the structure that you have, the team meetings, everything. When you're working with an agent in the first like 90 days to 6 months, if you could lay out this blueprint, and if you said, if you do this, X, Y, and Z, you will be successful, what would that be?
If agents their mindset's 100% committed, they're committed 100% to do this full time. and treat it like full time, not like when it suits them around their errands and their gym and when they want to sleep in and blah, 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 all their excuses. Well, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I had this going on. Like they're ready. They're showing up and they're ready to go first thing in the morning. And they literally invest the time it takes, like, and not bullshit about it and make the calls and put the people in the follow-up box that we provide for them and tag them and do the things we say to do the videos, to not be the secret agent, to call the people, to make the appointments, to do all those things. You should have at least 10, 15 deals within 6 months. You should. The people that don't, they'll tell you, oh, I know, I got it. There's always an excuse. And that's 99.9% of the people, you know. And a perfect example will be, again, I'm going to go back to my new agent that's Korean. Mm-hmm. She escaped North Korea. She broke through the ice river to escape North Korea. So everything to her is like, it's no big deal. She has a language issue. She's had her license less than a couple months and coming on board, and she's already got someone under contract. That's her person. She's making videos in Korean and translating. I mean, she's checked off every single thing I've asked her to do. And then I have agents that, you know, oh, well, this, you know, I'm still doing this. And it's like, and there's an excuse. And so the ultimate it comes down to, like, we had this conversation in our team leadership meeting this week, was that I cannot want it for them. They have to want it more for themselves. And that is a epidemic in our country, is that you want to blame everybody else for what you don't have versus taking ownership of what you need to do to get better and be better. That's just what it is, you know?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Accountability.
But doing too much for people. Like when I started, I didn't even get a pen. I didn't get anything. No one would even talk to me. I don't even know how, it was crazy. It ended up being fine, but it was good for me. But it was hard. It was hard. I didn't know what I was doing. And I just figured it out because no one would tell me what to do.
So if you had to speak to your like younger self who's kind of in that same boat, and you said, no one's telling me what to do. And for example, your new agent that came out of North Korea, I don't know the situation, but I'm just going to paint it as this, because that's what some people say is, I don't have a sphere. So when people say work your sphere, for some people that kind of falls flat because they're like, well, what sphere? And then the next question is like, well, how do I work them? Do I so could you walk me through that?
Yeah. Everybody has a sphere. So, your sphere could be, if you live in a place in any way, shape or form, you go get your hair done somewhere. You get your nails done, you get your dry cleaning done, you go to the same coffee shop, you go to a restaurant you go to. If your kids are in school, you see the teachers, same teachers, administrators, the bus stop person. If you get your yard mowed, that's landscape people. If you get your house clean, there's cleaning people. If you go and have coffee with people and friends in the neighborhood, you have neighborhoods that are people. Those are all your sphere. Like, so when people say they don't have a sphere, I call bullshit all day long. They don't want to have a sphere. They're looking to find the problem and tell you why they can't do it, versus saying, how can I make this work? And again, it's self-accountability and ownership problem I see day in and day out that I just don't have any patience for. So when I see that from people, I say, you're not for us. Like, it's just, you're not for us, because I can't help you want it and I can't help you see what's right in front of you. Does that make sense? So it's like the concept of like, it's right there. And if you're married, your husband or wife probably has people that they know, right? There's also something called referral business. So if you didn't live there, you probably have a whole sphere somewhere from you came from. Where did you go to school? Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? Who are your parents? Who do your parents know? Who are your relatives? Who do they know? Who are your best friends? Who do they know? What it is people are unwilling to make the call to say, will you help me? Because they don't feel that they are worthy of it. That's what it comes down to, right? So it's about calling and saying, hey, I'm in real estate now. Who do you know that's looking to buy or sell? And making those calls and sucking it up and understanding the market and studying the market. And if you don't know what to say, then maybe you need to go learn something about the market to bring some value, right? And if you don't know anybody, then maybe it's about knocking on doors. If you don't know anybody, it's about getting on the phones and calling people and, you know, meeting people and going into groups, joining a BNI, joining a referral networker, going to the chamber, volunteering. I was a Girl Scout troop leader. My husband was the PTA president. There are boards in the YMCA. There's volunteer opportunities all over the world and country all day long with people that are like-minded. It's about going into where your interests lie anyways. People that go to the gym, who do you work out with? I've gotten business from my hairstylists. I've gotten business from my nail people. I've gotten business from my baristas. I've gotten business from my kids, all of my kids' activities. So I call bullshit when people tell me I don't have anybody. I'm like, why don't you, would you maybe this is not for you. Maybe you should go get a job then, because that's what I was saying about do you understand this is not something that's just all fun and games of showing houses. And that's the number one thing I look for is when someone tells me I love looking at houses. I'm like, well, this is not for you. That's 1/100% of what we do. Is look at a house.
And the other 100% is follow up for 3 years and maybe they'll buy or sell.
One of my longest follow up was 9 years. Mm-hmm.
So someone might hear that and they might say, how do you follow up with them, not be annoying, provide value? What do you do to follow up and not be a nuisance to the person and not feel weird about it?
I think it depends on each individual. I think you have to know your people. It's the know, like, trust model, which we all know. And if you're in sales, right. And then being in the flow, of connection and having, again, the human experience. We're all human beings and figuring out what do they need from you and finding out what they need from you and genuinely connecting with people and putting on your CRM, noting hey, so-and-so is struggling with whatever, and you show up with it, things like that. I ran into a perfect example. Was having a lunch today with another agent. I ran into a past client, dear friend of a family of ours as well. I've helped them several times and their entire family. I'm their agent. And I just saw her. I was like, Jennifer, what are you doing? And I gave her a big hug. And she was just talking about she was struggling finding 2T t-shirts because all of its fall clothes out. And I was like, oh, I might have some stuff at home. Let me go check and I'll call you and I'll drop some off at your house. Perfect example.
Simple, not asking for business, just helping.
No, and I was like, oh, I need to see the house because she told me she got some stuff done to that. She's like, you wouldn't believe how much we've done to the house. You need to come take a look at it a while back because she was looking for the color of the hardwoods they couldn't figure out. And so I reached out to the agent to get the information to get it to her. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a continuing of a relationship. It's just a relationship. It's not a sterile A, B, C, D, black or white. It is individual to each relationship. So there is no insert this fake sentence and be a robot. It is a human being you are dealing with. I don't care how much AI you have, you can never replace the human experience and belly to belly business. So get yourself out there and be with your people. And if you don't want to do that, this is not for you. Again, it really isn't. It's as simple as that, and it doesn't have to be for everybody. That's why I tell people, if you really hate it, don't do the business. There's so many other things in the world to do. I welcome you to leave. I don't like these agents that they're so miserable in the business. Why are you doing this if you're that miserable? It should be fun. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love when I get to see my agents win and grow and develop in their careers. It's so exciting to see that. And so if it's for you, oh my gosh, you're going to blossom and grow. You really are.
So I think going into this year, some people might have expected it, some might not have, but now we're kind of pushing through a tough year, and potentially the next year could be tough for a lot of agents. And you mentioned earlier, when you started, I think your team or your brokerage, you're having a baby. Mm-hmm. And then you also mentioned walking through fear, and being able to kind of stick it through. And I don't know if you said this or your husband, it might've been you. You said that your husband said, if you were not who you are today, we probably wouldn't work together.
He said that. It was my husband. So it goes back to, remember I was telling you I was so rigid earlier on. Mm-hmm. So I was pregnant when I was a solo agent. I got pregnant when I was I'm going to be a teen is when I got pregnant, way back in beginning of 2017. And then I was like, what? Oh my God, I'm pregnant. Like I freaked out. Like it was like not good. So, ultimately what it comes down to is this, is that my husband and I have gone through many ebbs and flows of marriage. 3 children, I mean, we buried his father, all the things that we've gone through in relationships. And you're married, I can see that,
Yep.
it's hard to be married to someone. There's stuff, there's two different, and it's not all fun and games all the time. And you want to stab each other sometimes, but there definitely comes a space and time. Like, I think I was so like I was like, it had to be my way. I was so absolute. I was so
Yeah.
absolute. It's gotta be this way. I'm right. I'm not. You don't know what you're talking about. So he would never have worked with me. I think he would have been like, we're going to be divorced if I work with her. But because I worked on myself so much, not that I'm patting myself on the back, but I am, because I can physically feel that I am not the same person. Not even like 3 weeks ago, I'm different, if that makes sense. Because like I'm making a conscious decision, and I'm already the person I want to be. Like, so if I want to do all these things, and I know you're doing the same thing yourself, I can see that, which is exciting to see. Then you have to embody that, right? So if you're manifesting it. So I'm like, how do I want to show up? Like, what does a true partner look like? What does a true, like, loving, supportive wife look like? Not, just admitting that I'm wrong. Like, I had a really hard time with that. Like, I just wouldn't say I was sorry. I was like, nope.
I want to ask a little bit about that. Because I'm curious. Because, for example, like when I see something, like, for example, like what I'm doing right now and everything, like I see the vision, like I have this unrelenting focus where like almost everything, and I say this like, because obviously I've learned now, like being married, having a house, having a puppy, like there's more responsibilities. We're going to have kids probably in the next like 3 years. Like I can't just push everything away. Like I can't. And I know that. But my personality is like, when I know it, like I'm super focused and I'm in and I'm just going. And just by happenstance, that sometimes comes at a cost.
Yes. Yes.
And I was curious because I imagine starting your team, starting the brokerage, that wasn't easy. And I don't know if he started immediately with you or if he came on board at a certain point. What did you learn about having to integrate your life together and like make time for things and make time, because you have 3 kids, like you can't just not give them any time. So what have you kind of learned?
I didn't word that, but yeah, it's hard. Michael and I have had a very non-traditional life, is probably what I would say. He's been an entrepreneur. His dad owned one of the first Japanese restaurants in Manhattan. He was born and raised in Manhattan. And I met him in a very serendipitous way when I was in college, and he was doing business. And I had like the corporate job with the insurance, and then we got married and he worked from home, and we took care of his dad till he passed away. And when I got pregnant, I had like the corporate job. He was working from home. We were going to put our child into daycare. When the time came, and you'll see this, I just couldn't do it. I was like, I can't leave him at this building with strangers. I just like lost it. And he was like, I'll just take care of him. So he became a stay-at-home dad. So that was a whole nother ball of wax that he was a stay-at-home dad. He took care of the kids. But it was really hard for me. And again, as a woman, you want to maintain control of like how things were done. And I felt devalued as a mother, and I felt like guilt of a mother that I wasn't at home with them. And I had to really reframe what a mom is, and that it's okay that it's him. He's just as much of a parent as me. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't mean I don't love them. You know what I mean? Like I had that guilt. I had to really work through all that, and it broke me. And I think that we've kind of gone through a lot of good and bad through that experience, and it hasn't been easy. And I think just redefining roles, like we have a very fluid roles. Like he handles all the kid stuff. He handles I call him procurement. If I need something, I send it to him. He gets it. Like I don't worry about that. Like I don't do the shopping. I don't do anything. That's not my domain. I released it. Now that comes as well. I can't have judgment on how he's doing it.
Yep.
So like, you know what I'm saying? Like my mom said to me, she's like, do not criticize how he does things. If you're letting him do it and you've agreed that that's his role, let him own it. That's really hard. I know you know because you're married. You're like, oh, you know, like when you get assigned something like, why are you washing the dishes that way? Like, you know, it turns this whole thing, you know? So I think we learned really early on to stay in our lanes. And so because of that, and our children, we have incredible children, very just, everyone says that about their kids, but our kids aren't. We have a beautiful family, and I'm very fortunate. We're very, very fortunate to have such a beautiful family together. We prioritize, we have the same values. Again, it goes with values. We share the same values in how we want to raise our children. And what we see is like we don't undermine each other with our children either. So it's like we make decisions together as a couple and as a family, and we are very open with our children, having hard conversations with them too. And in this day and age, you really need to. And I think that has been paramount. They know we run businesses. Our children come with us everywhere. Like I pull them out of school to go to team leadership.
That's awesome.
Like, they've seen us in the business. Like they come to the office with us. Our 5-year-old's at the office with us. She, you know, when our other one was homeschooling, was taking care of her younger sister. Like, I grew up in the working business. My husband did as well. My son has been working since he was 14 at a car wash. Like my daughter babysits for us. Like it's like a family business. Like they have no choice. Like they came to open houses. My husband used to shoot. We would drag them all over the place. Like that's how they learned. They saw like this is how they can go on these great vacations. This is how they have a great life. So part of our family time is all of that. But they got to go to this incredible vacation, and we take them and we travel. We prioritize experiences over things. My kids don't play travel ball and do all this crazy shit like that. I don't have time for that. I don't encourage it. Like my daughter does like theater stuff, and my husband does the volunteering for that. See, so we divide and conquer. And because of that, I can grow and do the things I need to do. And it's only because he is my biggest support. That's what I would say to you, is that like when you guys start to have family, you guys have to be united. You know what I mean?
That's good, because we've been learning more like how to kind of like mesh well together, because we're two different minds. Like I've been sales my whole life, like never had a W-2,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's only seen the other side. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
kind of teaching each other. It's like, hey, this is kind of what we want. This is our mission, vision, values, etc.
That's beautiful.
So, but it's a learning process, and it's not easy.
Yeah. How long have you been married?
Only a year now.
Oh my gosh, you're newlywed. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I will say this too, is that just remember this, Jay Shetty, I love him. And I know you know him because everybody knows Jay Shetty. He was talking about the things that annoy him about his wife, but then he realized, and vice versa, was the very things that annoy you about that person are the things that were attractive to you. That's why who they are. So sometimes you just have to embrace the whole person and not the things that you want to pick at. So like on days that I'm having hard days, sometimes you're just like, I just want to punch you. and you just have to remind, like, I love you. I love him so much. Sarah Blakely talks about that. She's like, I love him so much. Like they're night and day. Like my husband we are nothing alike at all, period. But I think it's beautiful. And I embrace all of it. And I think you kind of go through phases of marriage and life that we're in a really, really good space now. And I think that we struggled through a lot of different stuff to get to where we are. And we will continue to struggle. This doesn't just stop, you know, and we have aging parents. We're the sandwich. Like we have children, we have aging parents, and we're trying to grow businesses. And so we have all of it coming at us. And I think part of it is just seeing the beauty of it all and the opportunity. And when you work the business we work, we can make the wealth we want.
That's true. That's the upside.
Yeah.
I do have a very selfish question, because I think you asked your kids, would you rather me not own the business? You in some phrase of that. Mm-hmm. And my thought process along that is there's this whole kind of debate, especially around parenting now, about quantity and quality and the time that you spend with the kids. And I was curious to get your thoughts on that, being a leader, being an entrepreneur, and how you think through that.
I think this is the best quote to remember: be present where your feet are. My coach told me that. And when you're present where your feet are, like I'm present here with you now, 100%. And I can appreciate this moment and enjoy it. And when I'm with my children, I'm with them fully. They have my attention fully and they know it. And I'm interested in them and I want to know what's going on there. I want to know what they're having difficulties with. Everything that is hard for them is hard for me. So I think it's part of like understanding and walking through their shoes and not saying, oh, I remember when I was your age, you'll get over it. It's no big deal. It's a big deal because it's a big deal to them in that moment. And I think that's with anybody, like a new agent. I have to remember like that works for your agents too, like walking through their shoes and understanding what they're feeling in that moment and not being like, oh, it'll be fine, and it's so important. And it's like, I think it's understanding that helps you connect, and it's about connection, 100% quality over quantity all day long. But in the quantity of the little moments every day build up to quality. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
It's a marriage of both because it's the everyday little bit. Like I set alarms to like sometimes remind me to check in on my kids because I might have a crazy day, right? And just being like peeking in, what you up to? Like just like little snuggles and just a little moment. If I can just do that throughout the day, that's a lot of quantity, right?
Yep.
But it is quality too because I checked in and they know that I took the time away to do that.
That's great.
And you can do that with your wife, right? And I think that like all we want as human beings is to be seen and loved. And I think that is the hardest thing to ask for. And if you come from that space, like you're a husband, if you're like always looking for something incredible about your wife to love and honor, you're in her eyes she's always going to feel love and seen because you're always looking for something to love her on. It's a really cool way to live life.
Yeah. And that's awesome. Be where your feet are. I love that.
Yeah, be present where your feet are. Like that way you're not like wishing, because that's the old age that moms say, like when I'm at work, I feel guilty that I'm at work. And when I'm at home, I feel guilty that I'm not working. I've heard moms say that. Instead of saying that, just be present where you are.
Well, that's an awesome way to end.
I've so thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you too. I hope I get to meet you in person one day.